Hello everyone and welcome to the start of the World Blitz Championship. Here is a very nice game between Jan-Krzysztof Duda and Magnus Carlsen. Magnus, after winning his Rapid title, now wants to win his Blitz title as well, and he could once again be the holder of all three titles simultaneously. He did decline to defend his title as World Classical Champion, but he still holds the title of World Classical Champion, and if he somehow manages to win the Blitz section as well, then he will have completed the Triforce. And I don't recall if I mentioned in the previous video when we were still in Rapid, Magnus won the World Rapid Championship. Second place was won by Vincent Keimer. Absolutely incredible. He almost got a tiebreak against Magnus Carlsen, which would lead to a most incredible match. And third place was won by Fabiano Caruana, who who defeated Vladislav Artemiev in the final round. That being said, let's see how the Blitz unfolds. Here we have a very nice game. Duda with the white pieces against Magnus, and he opens with pawn to d4. We have g6 by Magnus, e4 now, and bishop to g7. Magnus again going for his modern defense. Knight f3, d6. We have knight to bishop to d3, and now knight to c6. We have c3 and knight to f6. Now Duda with a very strong center, and Magnus trying to develop as quickly as possible, and we'll try to undermine the center later on. So here we have castles, h3, and now Magnus strikes in the center with e5. We have captures, but not with the d-pawn. Knight captures on e5. We have knight captures, d captures, and just bishop to e3. Nicely continuing development. b6, Magnus wants to fianchetto his light square bishop, and now there are some games where bishop to c2 was played. Also queen to e2 is a known move, but Duda goes queen to c2, and it is now, as of move 11, that we have a completely new game. Magnus also continues development, queen to e7. You know that the rook is coming to d1, so it definitely makes sense. We have knight to d2, rook to d8, and now rook f to d1. We have pawn to a5. Magnus starts grabbing space on the queen side, and bishop to g5. We have h6, bishop to h4, and now bishop to e6. So, just putting pieces on optimal squares. We have pawn to a4 by Duda, not allowing Magnus to strike with a4, and now queen to c5. We have knight to b3, attacking Magnus's queen, queen back to c6, and now pawn to f3, really cementing that e4 pawn. And now Magnus can decide between two viable plans, or maybe even three. One is to go something like g5, bishop moves, and then knight h5 and put the knight on f4, and the other one is maybe to put the rook on b8 and maybe try to make some sort of a breakthrough there. But Magnus goes for the third option, which is bishop to c4. And okay, Duda says let's trade. Nothing wrong with trading. Captures, rook to d2, preparing to double up on the d file. So of course Magnus trades. We have captures, knight captures, kicks away the queen, queen to c6, and now knight to f1. For those of you who don't know, in Blitz section there is also a 2-second increment per move, so you never run out of time. We have rook to d8, and now knight to e3. An excellent square for Duda's knight. We have bishop to f8. Now Magnus wants to reactivate the bishop via this diagonal, and now knight to d5. Of course, now you cannot capture as the rook on d8 would hang. So bishop to c5 check. We have king to h1 and now g5. This is how Magnus unpins, but Duda just trades off one more piece. Knight captures on f6 with check. Queen captures, and now bishop back to e1. And okay, now Magnus's bishop is a bit stronger than Duda's bishop, and also Magnus goes queen to d6, making sure that Duda cannot play rook to d1. So Magnus has the control of the d file, he has the beautiful bishop on this diagonal, and he does have a lot of potential for pushing the kingside pawns and maybe going for some sort of an attack. So Duda goes b4, as one always should. We have bishop to e3, and now queen to e2. Putting pressure on the bishop, and now queen to d3. It would be a pretty big mistake if you played bishop f4. It seems like you're controlling a lot of squares here, but the g3 just eliminates the bishop and you resign here. So Magnus goes for a queen trade first. Duda decides, okay, let's trade. Captures. They were both now extremely low on the clock, and they were basically playing on increment. B captures on a5, B captures, and pawn to h4 now. Magnus says, all right, pawn to c5. We have pawn to c4, and now bishop to d4. Puts pressure on the rook here, rook to c1 and rook to a3. Magnus says, let's trade our a pawns here. So bishop captures on a5, rook captures on a4, and now bishop to d8. We have bishop to e3 now, attacking the rook. Rook to c3 attacks the bishop, and now bishop to f4. And already Duda has to worry about some checkmating threats with rook to a1 checkmate. So king to g1 and now bishop to g3. There is I will mention it because, like I said, players were already playing on increment here, but g captures on h4 is a great option for black. The problem is, if bishop captures on h4 is played, white can just resign. Look at this spectacular series of moves. Rook a1 check, king to f2, and now the incredible bishop to d2 with an attack on the rook and the threat of bishop e1 check, picking up the bishop on h4. So you would have to give up the exchange here, because if you play anything else, just bishop to e1 check and you lose the bishop on h4. So if Magnus wanted, he could capture the pawn, but bishop to g3, this doesn't really waste any time for him. Now the f2 and h2 squares are covered, and again Magnus is threatening checkmate. So rook to c1, blocking this, and now g captures on h4. And okay, Magnus is up a pawn, but it's still a doubled h-pawn. Perhaps Duda can still fight this. And with king to f1, he most certainly can. However, he plays bishop to b6 here, puts pressure on the c5 pawn. And now there is one move that allows Magnus to win the game, and it's possible only due to a specific placement of Duda's pieces, which is pretty much the case in any position, but I don't know, it just felt like this was something I should say. So you know, what are you gonna do? But yeah, feel free to pause the video here and try to find the only winning idea for Magnus while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this incredible series of moves. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is bishop to f4. That's the move. Now we will remaneuver the bishop here, and then the king will be forced either to h2, or the king will be forced all the way to the center of the board, which will mean that the white king will be unable to help out with the defense of the king's side. So Duda decided to go for rook to c2. Now comes bishop to e3 check, king to h2, and now rook to a1. And this is now unplayable for white. So Duda goes bishop to d8. It's even the top move recommended by the engine, going after the h4 pawn, but Magnus just shows that it is impossible to do anything about it. Bishop f4 check. We have king to h3, and now even h5, showing that if you capture on h4 now, then rook to h1 is checkmate, and capturing with the king also doesn't help, as a rook to h1 is still checkmate. The bishop and pawn are doing a great job here of covering the g file. So after h5, g3, Duda has to give up another pawn to create some breathing room for the king, but this means that Magnus now fixes his pawn structure and is up 2 pawns, and that is of course more than enough to win the game. King g2, now comes king to g7. Now Magnus will bring the king into the game, push the pawn to h4, and then at some point even to h3. We have bishop to e7, king to g6. We have rook to b2, and now rook to c1. Magnus even will put pressure on the c4 pawn, bishop captures on c5, and now h4. King to h3, stopping that h-pawn. Now comes rook to h1 check. And if you go to g2, rook h2 check picks up the rook on b2. So of course Duda has to go up the board. He plays king to g4, but now the elegant h3. There is no stopping g2 now. Rook to b6 check was played f6, and even bishop to e7 to win the f6 pawn, but it is well, futile, you know, at the least. So here g2, rook captures on f6 with check, king to g7, and it was in this position on move 54 that Jan-Krzysztof Duda resigned the game, as there is no defense against the g1 queen. Once this happens, you resign the game. You can give up the bishop with bishop to c5, but also, I mean, you're going to be down a piece. No point in playing that. So yeah, that was a very nice win by Magnus, and so far. And I'm recording this at around 10 games already having been played. It is currently a race between Magnus and Hikaru, both of them with 6 wins and 3 draws. They've drawn their game that they played together. It was a fairly quick draw, not a lot of fun happening there. So we'll see what happens. They decided to draw against each other, and then they will try to crush, as I imagine they see it as a lesser opposition. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I will keep you updated if Magnus will be able to you know, complete the Triforce, or will maybe Maxime be able to defend his title as World Blitz champion, or will someone, maybe Dubov or someone who is really fighting well in both tournaments, maybe take the crown. So yeah, once again, hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Michael Hoff Consulting, Amin Karania, Mark Abbott, Robert Taratun, and Michael Sakarias for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this wonderful event until it finishes. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.